At one point, the
Yeah.
U.S. Mint was by far the best mint in the world. They supplied all the Silver Eagles necessary to meet demand. They
Yep.
had wonderful products, fairly priced. They were literally looked up at upon as this is the gold standard of what a mint should be. Now it is looked up as a complete piece of shit mint, and I am so livid. They did a website revamp. It is the worst website ever known to man. They took out the historical Silver Eagle sales, and they are just putting the 2025 sales up for some reason. They have not sold a Silver Eagle in June, sold 700,000 in uh, May. They are on track to be the lowest Silver Eagle sales in history, and yet we're still on allocation. Andy, could you explain to the public what the fuck is going on at the Mint?
No, I really can't because it defies logic. It's as if they are trying to, I mean, you could argue they've been the model of inefficiency for a long time. They're trying to perhaps uh, just get the littlest amount of silver, like your interview, the interview that you did that I think everyone needs to listen to, the two-part interview or three-part interview, Jack Sermon, I think his name was,
Yep.
and it's one of the two go-to interviews that I would tell anyone who wants to know what's going on to listen to. And in it, when he said, "I was told by my superiors to only produce just enough Silver Eagles to not create a backlash, a a what am I trying to say? A media backlash or something that we're going to have to try and quell." Well, that's obviously what they're doing, and because everything else premium wise has reacted far differently than the American Eagles, which have maintained their premium, not high premium, but higher than everything else simply because the demand is or the supply is not meeting demand. And which is weird because there's plenty of product on everything else, but Silver Eagles have really been that one item that has maintained demand, but the supply just isn't where we would expect it to be. I don't know. I guess I take a lot from that interview that you did with Jack, and I never thought I would hear a Mint official say he was told by his superiors, and I don't know who those superiors would be. I doubt it would have been the lady that used to run it, the HR lady. I forget her name,
Citrus
but
Gibson.
yeah, whatever Gibson. But I think it would be more along the lines of the Treasury Secretary who would have given him those instructions. But yeah, there's no question, really. I mean, you look, they haven't even made a Platinum Eagle yet this year, and you can see that they're very, very inefficient. But it's almost as if maybe they are restocking the American government, perhaps, and using stupid excuses and lack of transparency and the admission by Jack that yeah, just make as little as possible without creating a backlash that they're doing. Maybe they realize along with all these imports and deliveries into the United States that we have allowed this to become a very detrimental situation to the safety of the country, that we are woefully understocked in things like gold and silver, and that's why they're delivering it into the system. Maybe it is the Treasury that is behind all of these big deliveries, and on one hand, we can't make the admission that we're woefully underprepared for the future as it pertains to something as strategic, not just industrial, but strategic as silver, and at the same time let it all go out the back door to the American public. So, I mean, that would be the only thing that would make sense to me, Bix. I can't think of any other reason why they would go to such great lengths to keep Silver Eagles from the public when it's in the or in the law, the charter of the mint, that they're supposed to produce as many as is demanded by the public, which they clearly haven't for the better part of 5 years.
Yeah, and I don't think it's the stockpiling thing. I think that's the stockpiling thing is happening, has been happening for decades. That's another part of like the road to Ruta stuff. We are moving back to gold and silver standard. The United States has been preparing for this since the creation of the Fed. How many gold and silver coins we have is unknown. But
Then why would they do it?
here's my answer. The Silver Eagle program was the most popular retail silver program in the world for a very long time, since its creation in 87. It literally, they were doing 50 up to 50 million ounces, 2013-14 timeframe, consistently over 30 million ounces. When I talked to Jack Sermon, he said he could easily do 35 million ounces. Um, that if you want to stop retail buyers, you take away their favorite investment, and that's what they did. They basically, when Ventris Gibson came in, appointed by Joe Biden, they basically stopped, or they told Jack Sermon, the head of Silver Eagle sales, to stop making Silver Eagles. What would that do? When David Ryder was in right before that, we were building up. We did 30 and then 32 million. We're building up to 50 million again. And they literally put a stop to it. And that's about when the retail investors stopped. The retail investors started dying after 2021, and all of a sudden everything was different. You can blame COVID, you can blame whatever you want. The industrial went crazy. We were sitting here today where on the US Mint website, they're selling silver products, not the bulk Eagles. They're selling silver products for 3 times the price of silver. They're
Mhm.
price gouging the American public. According to the American Eagle law, they are required by law to provide silver and gold eagles at cost with no markup. That is the law. And they're and at least in silver, they are required to buy that silver anywhere in the world. With gold, they're supposed to get it from domestic sources, but Jack said they weren't. But they're supposed to legally. With silver, it was different. It was they can source those products, that silver, the silver blanks, the planchettes, from anywhere in the world. Now it has to be the quality and all that. And I talked with the Sunshine Mint guy, and the reality was he said, well, the demand went down, and they didn't want as much silver, so we had to get different customers. The United States Mint is also required by law to bid more than anybody else for those silver blanks. That is the law. The law says, it doesn't say, well, if the price of silver blanks gets too expensive, you don't have to make them. No, that is not what the law says. They are required by law to make silver eagles to meet customer demand. Period. And just because it's Bassett now who gets to decide whether or not we're meeting demand, it doesn't matter. We know we're not meeting demand because we've been on allocation for what, 10 years now? Something crazy like that. Allocation means if you want to go in there with a big order, you only get up to what you're allocated. And these are the authorized dealers. And do you know what the markup is right now on Silver Eagles at that level from the mint to the authorized purchasers?
I would say it's probably somewhere in the neighborhood of $2.50 or 60 cents, right in that neighborhood over spot. And this is where it gets crazy because when they run out of product, as they've shown the propensity to do continuously, and the primary distributors have it all, this is where the markup becomes absurd.
Right.
But that goes both ways, buy and sell. It's not at my level, it's at the level one above me, the primary distributors. We're an authorized reseller, which is one step below the primary distributors. They're the ones who will spend 50, 60, 70 million dollars indiscriminately on this stuff, on Silver Eagles. Take everything that they can give on allocation. They all do that. So the mint's now out of product. And in essence, they then become the market makers and control the price. So I want to say the mint charges between 240 and 260, somewhere in that neighborhood, I would think, to the primary distributors right now over spot.
I think that's what Jack said at the time, which was a couple years ago. But he also said that wasn't cost. They were making $1 a coin on that, and I told him, I'm like, you can't do that. It is literally, it's written in the law what you have to charge for the Silver Eagles. It is cost plus. It is cost. It is your cost. It is the price of the metal plus the cost to fabricate it plus whatever marketing you have to do. You cannot build in a margin, and it says it in the law, and yet they do it. And the mint made $100 million, I think last year, or 90 million or something. And yes, they're marking up the uncirculated coins. What Jack said, they're putting all the silver that they get towards these other coins. The freaking
Morgans in the piece, yeah.
yeah, coins that literally they're not required to make. A lot of them they aren't required to make. They mark them up so high they want the profit, is what he said.
Yeah, they can sell a third the silver and make the same amount as selling it all in
Yeah.
Eagles.
So they're
And
gouging. They're price
it
gouging.
it reminds me of the cop that I saw in the gas station not too long ago, around dusk, and one of his lights was out, his headlights. I said, sir, your headlights. I said, a good thing I won't get pulled over. I laughed and he laughed, but it's true. It's like, who's going to do anything about it? I guess is the question. I think that's how brazen this has all become. But yeah, to your point, Bix, um, on everything. There's far greater demand up top, but you can see it. You can see it through the massive purchases, the massive deliveries, and then the repatriation, whether it be taking it off the exchanges or central banks bringing it home, removing counterparty risk. And to your point, yes, I mean, the demand is still pretty good on the retail level in comparison to where it was most of the time that I've known you over the last 20 plus years. But by the same token, it represents such a tiny, tiny bit of the mainstream. Um, they haven't realized it yet. They really haven't. And so, yeah, what is very available and flush right now can very quickly change. We've seen that happen. Silicon Valley Bank failed. We added 14,000 clients in 45 days. That's 4 years worth of client acquisition in 45 days. But, that's really the kind of environment we find ourselves in, where the public isn't thinking, they're not forward thinking, they're not looking at this. They think the road to retirement is paved with stock certificates and mutual funds, which, to my point earlier, you have a record participation by the public in equities right now. At the same time, it's record accumulation on physical metals by the insiders. And so they flip flop. The insiders are out in equities and in commodities, and the retail public is all in equities and really pretty much out in as it pertains to commodities, at least on a large scale. So what does that portray for the future? Well, I'll leave that up to everyone else to decide. But we need people like you to keep giving us this information, the facts, the figures, and being there to hold all of our hands, because it is tough. It's tough for a lot of people to see the counterintuitive nature. What we see today, where oil was way down, the dollar was up, gold and silver, well, at last I looked, silver was up a little bit, but gold was down. Here we are filming, uh, in the middle of this escalation in the Middle East, and gold's down $35, silver's up 4 cents. But things are counterintuitive to the way we would think it would be to react in terms of reaction. But that's all done as part of the gaslighting, as part of the cartel 101 playbook. Um, I, for one, thank God every day for people like you who are making my job a little bit easier to try and get the information out, because you're right. These are challenging times for most people, and harder yet, the mainstream media doesn't do anything to open people's eyes to what is happening. So that's why we need you and others like you and me to continue to, scream. I don't know how many people are listening, but I hope enough to, we help just a couple. That to me is great, and I'll continue to do it.